That will not only give you a school directly contacting you with information about it, which hopefully gives you all the information about the program in one place, but then lets you establish a dialogue with the school. Maybe gives you some contact info that you can reach out with additional questions, okay? Gradschools.com, this is the wrong picture, is the final one, and it's also focused on graduate education and has the same option where you can request some of these different info. Finally, here in the IRC, we have a couple different books. The best one that should also be available in our corners is what's called the Book of Majors. Now, you may have a subject that you're not quite sure exactly what the American equivalent is, or you're not sure if the word directly translated is what you want to study. Now, at the beginning of this book, it talks about different majors. So, for instance, I am now at a glossary. American Studies, right? American Studies may mean something a little bit different here in the United States than it does here in Algeria. That was actually a great example. So this will describe what it's about, types of courses, concentrations, what study in the major is like, potential career opportunities. So it's a good way to try to refine your major if you're interested. The even better thing about this book is, once you know what your major is, in the back, it lists by subject, and then broken down by state, the number of schools that offer a degree. And next to each degree, so what do we say, petrochemical engineering? Yeah. Petroleum engineering, excuse me. So what is your master's in exactly? What is the title of your master's right now?
Oil refining.
Oil refining. So you're not going to find anything listed under oil refining, you got to go to petroleum engineering. There's a lot of physics. There's a lot of physical education. Pharmaceutical science, percussion instruments, petroleum engineering. And under petroleum engineering right here, it lists the different states with the schools underneath. So you notice the one in Alaska. University of Alaska Fairbanks has two letters next to it, B and M. What do you think that means?
B and bachelor.
Bachelor and master's. If it has a D, it's a doctorate. So you can see some have B in Colorado, Kansas, Louisiana, Missouri, Montana, Pennsylvania, strangely enough, has a lot of bachelors, but they're all part of the same college system, and Texas. Okay? So this is a good tool to start your search for, if you have a very particular subject. We also have college profiles of major undergraduate universities, as well as a book of all the different two-year community college universities. So we have these in book form and on online form to help you research. Now, the other thing that I'll mention here is scholarships, because some of you may want to start your search with a scholarship. Okay? Now, what I've listed, we'll go into far more depth next week on this, but what I've listed right here are, and again, I'll send this links, undergraduate search engines at the bottom of the page, graduate search engines, and Education USA's own search engine. And then finally, the last scholarship opportunity is the Fulbright, which is offered by the US government. This may be where you want to start if you can't contribute a lot of money towards your own education. The most limiting factor may be, where can I afford to study? Because unfortunately, studying in the United States can be very expensive, right? That doesn't mean that there's not opportunities out there. Next week, we'll talk more in depth about other tools related to scholarship searches, including a tool I'll provide you with that is a spreadsheet compiled by Education USA by advisors everywhere. And what this spreadsheet is it lists the schools and allows you to search in them. And any time an Education USA, somebody that interacts with us, gets a scholarship, and we did. We had one young woman, remember Sabrina, Nadia?
Sabrina, yeah.
Yeah. Sabrina got several different scholarship opportunities for her undergraduate. I think she got around $18,000 from Temple University a year. to help cover about half of her costs. So her information's in there. And they take everybody from all different parts of the world in the Middle East and Africa, and they compile them together. What do they list as the average amount? And then what do they list as the maximum amount that anybody has ever got? And it's that's especially useful for you, because you can say, hey, if I want to get a bachelor's, but I need a full ride, what are the schools that'll be able to offer that to me? Or, alternatively, if somebody from Nigeria got $65,000 a year, does that mean that somebody from Algeria could probably do it too? Why not? They sound very similar, right?
Yeah.
Algeria and Nigeria, it's practically the same. Do you guys get that too, where people say, people mistake Nigeria and Algeria?
A lot.
Yeah, a lot?
Yeah.
When I tell people back in America where I live, they say, oh, they're either thinking of Albania in Europe,
Yeah, in Europe.
or they mishear and they think Nigeria.
They don't. A lot of people don't even know Algeria.
Yeah, and that's a shame.
Yeah.
I mean, we beat you in the 2010 World Cup, so they should remember from that, right? Last minute too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, very last minute.
Last minute.
Very clutch goal.
You do remember.
I very well, very well.
You are lucky.
Yeah. I don't want to get off track, but that Germany game was a heartbreaker. You know, that was tough. Sometimes the best choice, though, is just simply Google, and try different combinations of phrases. So, for instance, you may want to type in molecular biology, PhD, international students, or molecular biology, PhD scholarships, or different program options. You may want to jump straight to specific schools. So let's see how this might work. My master's in political science. I didn't get into Columbia, but I do know that that's one of the best universities for political science in the United States. Now, one of the reasons I know this is because a lot of the research that I've read in political science is written by people at Columbia. So if you're in a more advanced graduate level, think about what is the specific subject. And sometimes I meet Algerian students and, man, it is specific, right? Like the effect of lasers, I can't even understand it. I'm not a science person. So instead, try searching for Google Scholar. Identify works and see where those professors, what universities they're at. Because professors that are most closely aligned with you and your research interests are going to be the ones most likely to hire you for fellowships or research assistantships to help you pay for the cost of your PhD. They may be the programs that have the best knowledge. There's political science schools that specialize in American government. I didn't want to study American government. I wanted to study international relations because I live not near the American government. I'm near the Algerian government. I need to know foreign governments. So Columbia, and from there I want to find the Department of Political Science. If you're looking at a community college or undergraduate, just look at their general admissions page. If you are looking at a graduate degree, master's or PhD, you need to find the specific department of the subject that you are studying, because they are the ones that will process your application, okay? So it's a little bit different. So don't be going to the undergrad if you're interested in graduate. Now, on their website, I see two things: academic programs and admissions. Anything that says FAQ, anything that says international students, anything that says financial aid opportunities, anything that says how to apply. These are all things that are going to have relevant information for them. Don't forget to take a look at academic programs, because there may be details of those programs that might not match up with you. When I went and got my master's in political science, I looked at American University in Washington, D.C. It's a great university, has a really big international student presence, if any of you are interested. But their master's in political science required fluency in another language. Well, I wanted to earn my master's in 1 year. I didn't have 2 years. So I wanted 1 year. So I said, I don't have time to do a master's and learn a language. So I crossed American off my list. For you guys, that wouldn't be a problem, because are you fluent in another language? You're fluent in probably what, 2? 3?
Arabic and French.
Arabic, French, English, Berber.
Japanese.
Berber.
Japanese, but not so fluent. So yeah, so that would be no problem for you guys. So again, depends on the individual case. So don't be afraid to look at the academic program. You also want to figure out, oftentimes, to figure out the tuition rate, they'll list it by credit hour. So masters are usually around 36 credit hours. It can depend. But that'll help you calculate the total financial cost. When I click on admissions, I'm taken to this page. So here's MA admissions, and Columbia is really good. They lay everything out for me right here. These are all their application requirements. Application deadline, I need a bachelor's degree or equivalent. What's your equivalent to a bachelor's degree? Licence. Now sometimes, but not always, a master's degree, because your licence is only 3 years, they'll want to see 3 years and then plus one.
Yes.
Yeah. You need an application fee, a tuition deposit, which is relatively unusual, a resume, a writing sample, a statement of purpose, 3 letters of recommendation, transcripts, which you may have to get evaluated by a credential evaluator in order to turn your notes into a GPA. We had a gentleman on Tuesday, he was very concerned. He said, my notes are like 12 in my master's classes, 12 out of 20. Won't they think I'm a really bad student? I said, no, 12 out of 20 in a master's degree in a tough master's program is very good, right? So what will happen is if you send your transcripts in for a small fee, there's credential evaluators that will churn those into a GPA, and that GPA will probably be pretty high. And then finally a TOEFL exam. And then you can click here, it'll probably tell you the exact score you need. So I've got all this information, great. I think Columbia might be a good fit. So what do I do with this? Forget it? You need to keep track of it, right? So that's why I recommend using a spreadsheet. So this was for a young woman. She was interested in getting a master's in human resources. So we went through and we researched one school together. We spent about 30 minutes on their webpage clicking around to find the different answers to things. So I kept track of the university name, the degree name, credits required. In her case, sometimes Masters of Human Resources, they want to see actual experience in human resources, which she did not have. She didn't have yet. The admissions requirements, how many letters of recommendation, test scores, what's the TOEFL test score you need. The application deadline, the tuition cost, the application cost, and then what scholarships might be available. So when we were done with this, we looked at it and we actually decided, yeah, this might be a very good fit for her because it doesn't require any human resources experience. The GRE is recommended but not required, and the application deadline lined up. So going back to that, what are some of the things you might be looking for? What's the tuition cost? What's the application deadline? What is the fee? Is the application done online or is it mailed in? What are the requirements, especially TOEFL score? And what are the degree program details? Now, for some of you, the overriding concern may be that scholarship. That may be where you start. And then instead you backtrack to some of these other things. For others, given your level of funding, it may be something else that drives it. When you keep all this information together in your spreadsheet, this is just one school. Once you've got 10 or 15 or 20 schools, you can then start to make a decision about which you might want to apply to. Okay? Make sense to everybody? The other thing I'll mention is don't be afraid, even if your ultimate goal is a master's or a PhD, to consider exploring other options, like English as a second language classes, like community colleges, and especially our Fulbright Scholarship, which is only for master's degree students. Now, the way the Fulbright works is you apply to the Fulbright Commission, which in this case is the US Embassy. We will evaluate your application, and then if we select you, your application will go to someone in Washington, D.C., who will then work to place you in a US university. They actually basically apply to universities on your behalf. Now, why might researching schools be still important for the Fulbright Scholarship? Researching schools might be part of your narrative. The most important part of your Fulbright application is what degree do you want to get, and most importantly, why? Why do you want to get that degree? What will that degree do for you? An example of a good application, I'm going to talk in general terms here, is somebody that comes in and says, I want to get a master's degree in mechanical engineering because I have a licence in mechanical engineering, and that's the next step. That's the next level. That's gotta keep moving up, right? That's a bad example, right? Researching schools, and especially researching degree programs, is good because it allows you to help you build that narrative. It shows that you're a serious candidate. It shows that you're committed. It shows that you've given thought to this, right? If you're an applicant who comes in and it's clear that you just applied for this out of the blue and you're just hoping for a couple free years in America, that makes you less a successful candidate than somebody that shows that they put a lot of time and effort into planning out and is able to answer questions like, hey, when you come back, what will this degree do for you? What is the knowledge that you'll get from this degree? And how will it be important back in Algeria? Have you thought about all the ramifications? Have you talked to people who've done this before? That's a really good idea. Don't ever do anything before getting advice. Trying to seek out people that have done this before, because you can fall into traps that were otherwise avoidable. Okay? Now on the Fulbright application, there's an option to be able to list schools that you would like to be placed at. And here this depends. If you're interested in getting a master's in TESOL, teaching English as a second language, then there's many different programs that offer teaching English as a second language. So unless you have a specific desire, it's okay to put a couple schools, but we'll be able to place you pretty much everywhere. Now, if you have, we had an applicant last year who was interested in the way the brain signals worked when students were learning, because he had an education and a psychology background, and he wanted to deploy that in Algeria's education system. So in his case, it was literally just Harvard, because Harvard is literally the only school that's doing research on that. So again, that depends on you and what your program is and what your research interests are, okay? So it's still worth researching schools if you're only going to target the Fulbright. Understanding essay, writing sample, letters of recommendation, TOEFL scores become a lot less important. Instead, it becomes a lot more about the degree program details, okay? Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
And finally, I'll mention, don't be afraid to look at community colleges. Because when you see that, you know, Stanford University is $40,000 a year and requires all these different application parts and is very competitive, and then you see a community college that includes room and board is $10,000 and only requires a low TOEFL score and a licence, starts to look a little bit more attractive, right? So again, look at your profile and don't be afraid to look at some backup opportunities that can still provide you with some skills, that can still provide you with advantages, okay? Because hopefully you won't finish there. It can be a step on the road to something later. Contacting a university. We talked last week about the idea that you as students have a little bit of an advantage, and that universities seek diversity, and you are from Algeria. There are not many Algerians studying in the United States. So you have a real opportunity to craft a unique application. Not just because you're all unique and special individuals, but because you come from a very unique and special country that many Americans aren't exposed to. They think it's Nigeria or they think it's Albania. So not just your culture, but your education system, what you might bring back, and what you might bring back to your academic institutions, to to Sonatrach, to oil refining companies. So here you can see there's usually some sort of email where you can reach out to the university. This is a good way to get more information. This is a good way to get questions answered. And this is a good way to market yourself as an individual and maybe potentially attract an admissions officer's attention. So how do you do this? Let's do a bad example, and then we'll do the good example. So this is an email I got from somebody addressed to me looking for more information on a university. Good morning. I am from Oran, Algeria. I have 22 years. I am a student in University of Language at Maraval in Oran. I study French language second years. I continued my studies in USA. I research a scholarship.